You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers!
Today's guest is bestselling author Allie Larkin, here to chat about her latest novel, Home of the American Circus, a heartfelt, sharply observant story about reinvention, resilience, and the complicated path to finding where and who you're meant to be. Please put your hands together and welcome Allie to the show. Thank you so much, Alliison, for joining me on this episode of On the Air with Florenza, where we are going to chat about your newest book, Home of the American Circus. And I'm going to have to flip my screen because it's backwards to me. But
it's forwards to me.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So before we get started, and again, thank you for joining me. We are going to toast to an amazing show. And you came with, wait, turn that around. What does it say on the front?
It says The Longest Year. It's Chris Perica. They're my favorite musician.
Okay. All right.
It says, keep on and keep your head up on the other side.
Now, has this been a long year for you, though, already? We're only in June, Alliison.
It has been a little bit long.
Oh, okay.
It's good, though.
Well, listen, you've been so successful already this year, so maybe that longevity gives you extra time to celebrate.
I love that. That's a great philosophy. Thank you.
Well, cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much.
You know, that's not good. I got that.
Oops.
I know. I had a birthday a few days ago. I turned 61. And family and friends came over, and apparently they all hear me talk about drinking, even though, yeah, my trash can does jingle. But so they brought me wine, different people, well, wine and other stuff. And I grabbed this when I ran downstairs. I was like, oh, yeah, it's liquid. Yeah, it reminded me to tell that friend not to come back.
Well, happy birthday. And thank you for having me on your show. And hopefully there's better wine waiting for you.
There's a bunch of it down here. I'm going to go through it and find out. So we are here talking about your book, Home of the American Circus. Please tell the listeners about this richly character-driven story. I just recently returned home. It's been almost 4 years. I had some of the trauma, but not all of the trauma. I can so relate to the character in terms of just that going back, if you will, and dealing with some of those secrets that you thought you could run from, and then you find out you just ran back into them. So talk about that and tell us why it was so important for you to release this book now.
I started writing this book many, many years ago. I tend to have an idea for a book and collect a whole bunch of ideas, and then kind of just revisit them over a long period before I'm actually ready to write the book. And so this novel is about a 30-year-old woman named Freya who is estranged from her relatives, and she has a medical emergency and can't pay her bills, and ends up back home where she's inherited this house she's been trying to ignore because it's falling apart. She doesn't want to go back to her hometown of Somers, New York, which is also my hometown of Somers, New York. When the book started, it was really just a story about Freya and her best friend Jam, and I hadn't set it in a particular place, and I just wanted to write a homecoming story. I kept watching all these movies of men having homecoming stories, and when women had homecoming stories, they were very much romantic focused, and they were not complicated. And I think women have such complicated relationships with with their relatives and the world and where they came from and who they had to be to get to where they're going, and how do you fit back into that. And so I really just wanted to tell a homecoming story. And then I was like, well, I kind of maybe need to tell a homecoming story in my hometown,
Uh-huh.
um, because I grew up in Somers, which is the home of the American Circus. Hacaliah Bailey brought the first circus elephant back. Um, he bought the first circus elephant in New York City and brought it to Somers, New York, and that was part of the rise of the American Circus. And so our whole town is focused on circus history and this elephant. And I was a very sensitive child who understood that a captive elephant is a tragedy.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wanted to set it in Somers to deal with that feeling in the world,
Yeah.
and deal with what it means to be a very sensitive person in an insensitive world. And so that's why I set it there. And then I was really afraid of this book. Once I put all those elements together, I was like terrified to write
Uh-huh.
it. But after I wrote The People We Keep, I had two ideas going, and my editor was more interested in this one, and it was my favorite book I've ever written at this point. I've written 5 books now, and this one's my favorite. It was also the hardest one to write.
That was going to be my question. Did it become your favorite because of how much blood, sweat, and tears and how much of you went into it? And now that it's done, you see elements of yourself in a way that maybe perhaps you, as the human or the creator, was too afraid to like look into.
Yeah, absolutely. When I wrote The People We Keep, I described it as like my story in allegory in a way. Like none of the things in that book really happened, but I
Mhm.
finished writing it and I felt like I'd taken a load off, like
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, wow,
Oh.
I needed to get that out. And I made more sense to myself. And this book kind of seems like the next level of that. And
Mhm.
there's a freedom to I read something once in a psychology book, like, a self-help kind of book that talked about how like all the demons in your head are things you've survived already.
Yeah.
And so you're afraid of looking at them directly, but they're things you actually survived. And even though the events of this book are not my life,
Mhm.
I feel like to write this book and to deal with the feelings and the texture of the book and to even just reconcile my feelings about my hometown, I had to look directly at all
Yeah.
of that.
Those
And it
demons. Yeah.
helped. Yeah. And it helped. Like,
Yeah.
I feel better. I needed to do that.
Do you feel being an empath? We talked a little bit earlier about, we were joking about, being the Pisces and I am one. I love astrology in terms of how it forms personality and, there are things about us that you just can't deny. And even if you don't believe in astrology itself as a science or an entity or whatever, there are just some aspects of it that just ring true. Do you feel that being this empath and being sensitive, not just to your own plight, but to that of others and not just humans? You were talking about the elephant, you're talking about being sensitive to those things, those living things. How difficult was it being this sensitive person and really having to delve into the trauma that your characters had? And what did you do for self-care afterwards? Like when you were done, what did you do to like bathe yourself from all of that?
I mean, I think that the it was really hard and I had a really hard time. I don't necessarily have the best practices for stopping writing at the end of the night and shaking it off, but in terms of the whole book and getting through the arc of the whole book, I think finishing it was its own cleansing.
Mhm.
Sending it off into the world is its own like, okay, I did that. But I have two dogs, and one of the things that's kind of my self-care is that we have to go for a walk every single morning, and they need me to be focused on them. They're a lot.
Yeah.
They're rescue dogs, and they have two very different personalities, and they're a lot. And so I think there's a part of that routine that they give me and what they require of me that allows me to, or forces me really to be present in the moment for a little while.
Yeah.
I'm a dreamy Pisces. Like as much as you can have your feelings about astrology, I do fit that profile
Yeah.
very specifically. And so I'm not necessarily very good at meditating because my mind's always wandering, but
Yeah.
having this, like, we're out in the sunshine, we're walking, I'm focusing on my dogs, I'm not
Yeah.
looking at my phone, I'm not daydreaming, I'm in the moment every single day is just the best thing for me.
Yeah. And that's so important. My thing is one grounding. So I'll go outside barefoot and just, I put my feet in the grass. When we're around the sand and water, I do that. We're fortunate there's a lake like literally right across the street. Um, and also I blow bubbles. I have bubbles everywhere. Miniature bottles of bubbles. I was just on a bus trip and I am on the bus blowing bubbles. I am, when we get off the bus, blowing bubbles. And it's amazing to watch what happens to people when they see bubbles. It's just this lifting. They become children again. And it's so fun. So add bubbles to your routine.
Yeah,
And
that's
dogs love bubbles.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that so much, like the whimsy of it. And also, I would think that the breathing of it
The
is part
breathing.
of, yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's amazing.
Yeah. So add that to it and watch the dogs. Like they love it. Let's talk about your characters because this is such a character-driven book. I write character-driven books, so I'm always fascinated when I read other authors who, really write those deeply flawed characters, right? You just find yourself in them. Freya, she's your 30-some-year-old protagonist. What I love about her are her flaws. We're talking about wounded, self-sabotaging. She's sarcastic. She avoids confronting her past really at all cost. What was it like to balance that with her good qualities and name some of those good qualities that you gave her and talk about why that was so important?
Yeah, I think, Freya is that kind of bleeding heart and um, needs to kind of stem the bleeding a lot of the time, and she has some protective qualities to it. But, you know, she's she's very loyal.
Mhm.
She feels like a disloyal person because she left her relatives, but she's very loyal to the people who care about her. You see that even in the beginning when her boss Buck, who is a disaster, up in Maine, like he's an absolute disaster. She works at this little clam shack, and Buck is continually drunk and doesn't know which end is up, and some guys at the bar are making fun of him, and she's not gonna get into that, like she's like, I'm not gonna sell out my friend for a couple bucks. And you kind of later see more of why she's so loyal to Buck and why she cares about him. But I think she has this level of not judging people for their messes if she can see the goodness inside them. And I
Mhm.
think it's a tightrope to walk with her because I wanted to make her as realistic as possible, and I still want you to love her. And some people are not going to love her. That's just the way it
Right.
works.
Yeah.
But people who can also see the heart inside a messy person are going to love her. And so I had to make sure that I was really making clear the goodness of her, like her good
Mhm.
intentions, and the way that she cares so deeply about people. And a lot of her defense mechanisms are around thinking she's not good enough for other people, like, get away from me because I might not be good enough for you.
Yeah. Excellent. Now you paired her with Aubrey, who is her 15-year-old niece, who kind of comes on the scene very guarded, right? So you've got this wounded character who is confronted face to face with this very guarded, cynical, she's got a past of trauma. When you put them together, like how many times did you just have to stop writing and giggle with some of the scenarios that you put them in?
I, I, the thing with Aubrey too is that they had this very close relationship when Aubrey was like 4 and 5, and then Freya left, and now Aubrey's a teenager. And so they have these misunderstandings of each other based on the time that's passed. Like Freya's very aware of what she doesn't understand about Aubrey now, but Aubrey has kind of that little kid's interpretation of the world that she inhabited in like she gets some song lyrics wrong and names one of her like names a pet after a song, but she had the lyrics wrong, and I just found that so delightful and I was always laughing about it. So yeah, I think it's there's like a translation between them because they had this shared language that they don't have anymore and they're trying to build it again.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it did put them in some very fun circumstances and
Uh-huh.
some cute banter and yeah, I really loved writing them. I really loved writing Aubrey too. She's
Yeah.
a complicated character.
Yeah, yeah. Even at that young age, which we sometimes think because someone is a teenager, right, that they're not coming with these complexities, but a 15-year-old today is quite different than a, 15-year-old for me. And we had these challenges. But one of the things is that we also came with a different set of tools, resilience and such that were passed down that not always do our teenagers today get. Now, talk to us about Stina and where she fits in and just balancing her, even though she's not present as much as she's impactful. And so talk to us about that balance with her and with Freya.
Yeah, Stina is Freya's technically she's Freya's half sister. And kind of always resented Freya growing up, and Freya sort of worshipped her sister, like just that was the person she wanted attention from most, and kind of couldn't see how much resentment affected their relationship, and
Yeah.
would kind of offer herself up for Stina's meanness over and over and over again in childhood. And then when Aubrey was born, they had some closeness because Freya was able to help her sister with this baby when Stina was suffering from postpartum depression. But as soon as Stina got better, it kind of went back to the old dynamics again. Um, and so there's, I think, a lot of sadness and loss in that situation for Freya, but also she's afraid of her sister. Her
Yeah.
sister is will do anything to maintain her status. They're just wired differently, like
Mhm.
there's some people who are wired to care about different things.
Yep.
And Stina cares about status. She cares about what things look like from the outside. And Freya doesn't really have the capacity to care about what things look like from the outside. She's just trying to hold her life together. Um, and
With
she kind
prayer and super glue.
Yes, exactly. And she kind of cares about the heart of the matter on everything, And so they're very, very different. They're not wired the same, and they can't understand each other because of that. So anytime Freya is doing something that's altruistic, Stina sees it as an affront. And Freya doesn't see that like she's not going to get anywhere with Stina, like that being better or trying harder or being kinder is not going to get her sister's love because it's just not there.
Did you have any family members or friends come up afterwards and say, okay, Allison, like, were you talking about me through Stina? Like, seriously, let that go, girl.
No, I have not had that happen, thankfully.
Now, talk to us about Jam. Jam was the crowd favorite, like the reviews that people talk about Jam. It's just so heartwarming. They're just like, no, we root for Jam. We root for Jam. Tell us what it was like when that character started speaking to you. And did you know at the onset of the character, like really speaking, the role that he would have fully, or did you find out his role as the book went on?
I definitely found out his road as the book went on. I had this idea of Jam, in kind, it was Freya and Jam at the beginning, and there was kind of a different storyline, but I had this idea of him and the closeness of their relationship, and that, they'd been friends, but they were a little bit more than friends, but they weren't more than friends. Like they were trying to preserve their friendship, and
Mhm.
that was the tension that they had between them. But then years ago, I went to see a band at Freight and Salvage in Berkeley after we moved out here, and there was a piano player playing in the band, and he was so in his own world, like so in his own bubble. And I started to think about jam in relation to
Yeah.
that. And I remember he was wearing a sweater that was mended with different colored thread. Like the thread didn't match, like very
Hmm.
purposely. And I was sort of fascinated by that and just the idea of like, things kind of being broken and patched together. And um, I started thinking about jam and I grew up in Westchester County and there's a lot of pushing kids into something that they're good at and
Hmm.
trying to make it everything. And
Hmm.
so I started looking into child prodigies and what it would have looked like if Jam had been a child prodigy. And one of the things that I learned about them is that a lot of times in in music with prodigies, they're very good mimics.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily artists. And
Right.
so they after at a certain point when their peers who struggled with the mimicry at a younger age become artists, they're
Yes.
still kind of mimics and there's something missing. And so I thought about how that would make Jim start to struggle when he got to college because he hadn't been focused on his art. It
Yeah.
wasn't coming from that. It was coming from if I play piano good enough, my mom's going to be happy with me. And so just starting to build up information about
Hmm.
Jam made him work. It was
Yeah.
like then he became this character where it was like, okay, well, if he feels this way, he's going to say that. If he feels
Mhm.
this way, that's what his struggle's going to be. If this is what his past was, here's what his present is. And um, I loved all of it. Like I
Yeah.
loved writing him. He started writing himself after that point.
Do you feel Jam or any of the other characters will find their life in a book outside of Home of the American Circus? Are they speaking in such a way that they want life outside or that they're comfortable in the space that you gave them within the covers of this book?
I don't know that yet. I think that that was all their story, but I don't know that it's possible that I'll have an idea for Aubrey,
Hmm.
because she's got a big life ahead of her, and
Yeah.
so it's possible that there's more there for her or even Freya. But I'm not sure. I don't know.
When you were finished with the book and you felt that you had given the characters the voice that they had given to you, what was your response when it was done? Did you feel this missing of their presence, or did you feel this celebration that you did what they came to you to do?
I think it was a little bit of both. Like, my goal with writing is to tell the best story I can for the characters that I created, because that's where it comes from for me, is these characters I love. But I do actually miss them a lot. Like,
Yeah.
it's hard to not be writing them right now,
Yeah.
even. Um, yeah, it was, and more so, I thought I worked on the People We Keep for 15 years, and when I was done with that book, I thought, I'm never going to love characters as much as this because, they were part of like, I spent my whole adult life with them, at that
Yeah.
point. And so I thought I was never going to love characters that much, but these characters, I just love them even more. I really do. And it's very hard to let them go.
Now, do your characters get jealous, your previous characters, when new characters come on the scene to demand your attention? 15 years is a long time to be with characters. What did they feel like when Stina and Aubrey and the rest of them started showing up?
I don't know. I mean, I think that like because I think that by the time, because they kind of like live in my head for such a long time before I start writing them, that they kind of exist a little bit on the side. It's sort of like, you have like your friends from high school and your friends from work,
Yeah.
and it's sort of like that. It's like they live in different parts of my brain. Um, but I think the sadness comes from like books are kind of like a graduation. Like when
It
you're done, you're like,
is.
oh, we don't live in the same dorm anymore,
I know.
And
It
that's
is,
really hard.
it it's so good to hear someone describe it that way because I feel the same way, right? And even for stories that aren't yet published and you know that you're done and they're with the editors and such, you just, it's like you not quite a funeral because you know that they're still living, but you almost feel like you gave them the best life. What Beyonce, I'm not a Beyonce fan per se. Don't come after me, Beehive. But she talks about that song where she wasn't going to let Jay-Z go because she wasn't going to let anyone else rock her chinchillas, right? Like, and it's like someone else is loving on your characters now, right? You
Yeah.
created them.
You made them and then they're not yours anymore.
They're
And I
not.
think that people think that you could just imagine them, but it's not the same.
It's
Like,
not.
it doesn't work the same way. You're not trying to figure out the puzzle of them anymore. And
Yeah,
so your brain doesn't connect the same way that it used to. And there's something, once you've written more than one book, you start to realize that. And
yeah,
there is like a sadness attached to
it
it.
is. Oh, so you're talking about the circus that um Somers
Somers.
Somers is a circus town. I had shared on one of the other podcasts that I did when they were talking about like ancestry and learning your family. Um, I always knew that the father that raised me wasn't my biological father. And then once he passed, I went on this quest to find him. And it's still brand new because it's not like a common known thing. But one of the things that I found out was that my grandfather on my father's side, my father's mother's side, they were circus owners. And not only were they circus owners, they were an all-white family that owned circus. And one of the brothers fell head over heels for a Black female who had already had children from her marriage and then had who would become my grandmother, right? And trying to find this information that was completely hidden because the family, yeah, I know y'all listening, who tried to keep me from getting the information. Although there was one cousin who has been very, 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 very helpful. Love you, Leslie. But the rest of y'all, mhm. Tell nothing. What was it like being in that whole circus environment? Like that had to be next level growing
Well,
up.
so Somers is really actually a very sleepy suburban town. Like the circus wasn't really happening there anymore at that point. But it was part of our lives in these weird ways. Like
Uh-huh.
the town hall is a building called the Elephant Hotel, and there's a statue of Old Bet, the elephant, outside. And when we had like an art fair in town, it was called the Art Circus, and our football team is the Somers Tuskers, like a
Yeah,
like
like the tusk.
elephant tusks. And there was a clogging team called the Tusker Trompers, like a clogging group. And so it was just this like low grade fever of circus in our town. It wasn't like there wasn't like a big top, and it was a very small town. Um, but it was interesting to go into the history of it, thinking that I knew everything about Haggai Bailey and the elephant because of what I'd been told in school. It's like I grew up in Somers, I'm an expert. And I'd even done a paper on the American Circus when I was a theater major in college, so I felt like I had some basic knowledge. But when I started when I did that paper, that was in the 90s, and I didn't, I was looking up like microfiche articles and
Uh-huh.
things like that.
Uh-huh.
So it didn't have the wealth of information. I'd find a fact and I would feel like, okay, well, it was in a book, so it was fact. But when I could start researching, okay, let me check this date, and like seven different dates would come
Yeah.
up. And you'd be like, wait a minute, I don't know the things I think I know. I thought that Haggai Bailey was the first elephant to come, or not Haggai Bailey, that Old Bet was the first elephant to come to the United States. And then it was like, well, she might have been the second. Not sure if she was an Indian elephant or an African elephant. Like they
Uh-huh.
have records of the elephants that came into port, but they're not sure which one was Old Bet. There's all these different stories about how he got her. And so like the lore of it was really
Yes.
fascinating. And I think like what you're talking about is this idea that you think you know things about some part of history. And in your case, it's your personal history.
Yes.
And the more you go digging, the more you find things, and the more, like, the less you know, all of a
Yes.
sudden,
Yep.
it's fascinating. It
It
was an
is.
incredible process.
Yeah. And my husband joked, he said, I figured you'd come from clowns.
Wow. Oh, that's fast. I want to ask you like a million questions about it. That's
We'll
amazing.
talk offline with
Okay.
some good wine. What is it that you have been the most surprised to hear a reader say about either of your books?
Um, this is so silly and petty. Um, I saw a review where someone complained that Freya has an appendectomy and that it was too dramatic, and she's a nurse, so she knows. I don't have an appendix. So I think there's a perspective difference here in that, like, a nurse who stitches you up and sends you home doesn't understand what you go through when you have an appendix. And it's such a silly thing, but it's one of those things where you're like, you know, that meme of like, someone on the internet is wrong. You know, like it drives me a little bit crazy because I also have like hypermobility and some chronic health issues, but my
Oh,
appendix like took me out. I was actually a little worried that I was having Freya heal too fast because I was bartending when I had my appendectomy, and trying to go back to work was absolutely excruciating for months.
yeah.
Like it was a long process to come back at. So I'm fine with whatever anybody thinks about my book, but that was just a thing where I was like,
You're
really?
not going to mess with my lived experience.
Yeah, like I wanna argue back that it was really hard. Like have some empathy for your appendectomy patients, please, because it's harder than you think it is.
That's a great question. If you've had an appendectomy, please chime in and let us know what was your healing process so that this
Yeah,
nurse can get a better perspective, so she can
never
get her
thought you were
facts
gonna go
right.
there on this one, huh?
Exactly. Where are the listeners able to engage with you and learn all things Allie?
I am at AllieLarkinWrites.com and on all social media. My dog is like right here
Uh,
sighing.
yeah,
That's
mine is close by too.
But yes, I'm at Allie Larkin, AllieLarkinWrites, on most social media platforms.
Okay, now I know just recently you started a podcast. Tell us a little bit about that and what the listeners should expect to hear and enjoy.
Thank you. Yes, I started a podcast with my friend Alice Carbone Tench. It's called Now That We Think About It. And it started because Alice and I would send each other articles all the time, or, you know, oh, read this book, or oh, watch this movie. And then we'd have these conversations about the themes that it brought up for us and like what it made us think of. And so Alice just said, what if we did a podcast of this? And I was like, yeah, why not? And
You're
so we
doing it anyway.
yeah, exactly. So we started that, and it's been a really fun process to learn podcasting with Alice and to just get to have these conversations and to think about the topics that we want. We did a really great episode on food where we talked about our relationships with food, which is, you know, as a woman, very
Yeah,
complicated. We have
yeah.
complicated relationships with food, and it's nice to get to have really in-depth, unguarded, heartfelt conversations and then get listener responses that we incorporate into future shows. So I've loved
Nice.
doing it. It's really fun.
Yes. And I love that it came out of something that you were already doing, right?
Yeah,
So it's like, no, we want to share this with everybody. We're having so much fun.
exactly. Exactly. It's been really great.
Wonderful. I know that Home of the American Circus is recently released. Are you already working on that next big thing, or are you allowing yourself time to celebrate?
I'm giving myself like the summer, I think, because I've been working pretty hard for a while and I'm re-landscaping our yard, which is so fun.
It
I'm really
is so
enjoying
much
that.
fun.
But but yeah, I do, like I said, I start books way in the past and
Mhm.
kind of keep working on them. So I have a whole new family of characters that are marinating in my head, and I'll be thinking about them while I'm gardening. And
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, now we've come to the part of our show that I call One for the Road, and it is basically some rapid fire questions. And I'm trying to see what list. Okay, you know what? I'm going to keep this list. Go ahead and drink some coffee. I'm going to drink some of this horrible wine. Maybe it's not so horrible. Maybe I just need some cheese and fruit to kind of
Sometimes
make it
with
come.
white wine, that first taste of it is a lot.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Okie dokie. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. So these are rapid fire. Just shout out whatever comes. The first one is kind of easy. Writing fuel. What is your writing fuel of choice? Coffee, tea, or something with bubbles?
Coffee. Absolutely.
Preferred writing companion? A playlist, a pet, or complete silence with snacks?
Snacks and pets.
Snacks and pets. What is the best, worst job you have ever had?
I think that would be bartending. It was one of the most physically difficult jobs I've ever had, and I think I learned more about the world than I could have in school.
You know, your bartender is your counselor, your therapist, your priest. They are your best friend. They are everything. Sometimes they're your partner in crime. You know, you can like bartenders get all of it.
Yes, and as a 21-year-old woman in a world of adults and having people talk to me like that, I feel like it set me up to be a writer, and I'm so grateful.
Now, were you a guarded teen? Did you grow up in like this really healthy bubble and you had like great boundaries, and then all of a sudden you were dumped into the underbelly of life as a bartender, or was it kind of a mixture?
It was kind of a mixture. I think I had the appearance of things being guarded when they actually weren't, and so yeah, so it was a departure, but it wasn't out of nowhere.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally get it. I hear what you ain't saying.
It's a whole other
Whole
episode.
different conversation. Okay, and the last, one thing you absolutely must have on your desk, even if it doesn't make sense. Oh, what do I have on mine?
Oh, I don't really, my desk is like a cesspool of stuff. I write on my couch here. And I have like so many blankets and pillows, like so many because I'm constantly just like readjusting to get
Uh-huh.
comfortable and everything. So, I mean, I guess they make sense,
Yeah,
but they're kind of
yeah.
I do have a pillow with an elephant on it though.
Oh, so cute. So, yeah, I feel like I'm adjusting today. This was so cute when I decided to pull it out because I thought it would give me like this little one shoulder thing. But Lord have mercy, is it not trying to do like a whole Janet Jackson? Right. So, to the lookers and viewers, I apologize that I'm constantly fidgeting, but trust me when I say you don't want to see under here. So,
It's a beautiful top though.
thank you. And our last one, describe yourself as a circus act. And I can give you some suggestions or go with your own. High flying acrobat, ringmaster in control, juggler of chaos, or create your own.
Oh, I like Juggler of Chaos. I feel like I could put that on my business card.
There you go. It's all yours.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Allie. This has been so much fun.
Thank you. I love getting to talk with you, Florenza. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
You're welcome. And Raimi, if you are listening, Allie is your number one fan.
Yes.
Maybe he can give you a suggestion for your podcast and come on and talk about it.
There you go. That would be great.
I'll tag him.
Okay.
And this wraps up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers!